The Private Label Pod with your host Paul Mooney, brought to you by Private Label People.
You just listen and leave the rest up to us.
Hi there everyone, welcome to the Private Label Pod. I am Paul Mooney. We can all suffer by paralysis by analysis when researching products to sell online. Here Robert gives us a few key tips on how not to be left in the doldrums.
Get involved, have your say, ask us a question or leave us a voice message by heading on over to privatelabelpeople.com/podcast.
Picking a product to sell on Amazon. There's a lot of methodology behind that. Some people probably get a little bit caught up in putting too much methodology behind it, but what are the key things you should be looking for whenever selecting a product?
Well, I guess it depends who you listen to. There's, you said there's a methodology. I would have a methodology. I think there's a lot of other people out there that would have their own methodology that I may agree with certain parts of that and I may disagree with other parts. And the bits that I disagree with are generally based off of logic, and that's something that we can kind of dive into today. And the nice thing about it is that the methodology doesn't really change from year to year. Has it changed over the last 20 years? A little, but only a little. The first thing that I would say that has kind of changed is price point. Actually, the type of sales price that you want to be looking at whenever you're selling on Amazon. It's very important for a number of reasons. I would have said about 10 or 15 years ago, you could have gone as low as £8 sterling, which would have equated to probably around $12 back then. The exchange rate was slightly higher in favour of the pound. Nowadays, and it has been moving over every sort of 3-4 years. Nowadays, I have that at $30. That's how much it has risen. And that really comes down to a number of different factors. A lot of people will say it comes down to Amazon's pricing, and that's not actually the case, because their fulfillment by Amazon or their courier or shipment rates, yes, they've gone up, but they've gone up pretty much in line with inflation. They haven't dramatically changed. And their referral fees, or the commission that they charge for each sale, it hasn't changed at all, hardly. And it's still at around 15% for most categories, some at around 12%, others are slightly different. But it's been very rigid over the last 20 years. But it comes down more to the competitive nature of the entire market. Now you're picking up more storage, for say, of your goods that you have to order because there's more competition, so you do need a little bit more room in there, and also some advertising costs. The competitive nature of that platform inside Amazon has gone up, so therefore you need a little bit more inside that. So therefore it's moved, in my opinion, up to 30. That would be the first protocol, Paul, in terms of my methodology, of which there are more, but that gets us started.
Yeah, so it's like a price point that you're looking at there.
It's the economics of it.
Yeah.
It's like you're making your revenue, and then you've got your cost of goods sold, and then you have some external factors. So, and it's a big one. A lot of people will say, "Oh, but you could sell something at $10 as long as it's small and light." Well, now you're getting into a whole pile of different filters and criteria, and it's going to confuse the layperson. It's going to even confuse a novice or even an intermediate. They're having to put it through all these different filters. Whereas if you just look at it and say it's $30, if it's underneath that, don't even bother, because it's not really going to work for you longer term. And that would be new products. You may have something that you have currently in stock inside your portfolio that's lower than that, but it's working. Well, then that's okay, but it's something new going forward. I would say 30 and above.
Is it something people get caught a little bit with, in terms of, say you don't have a huge amount of money to invest in a product, you're going perhaps in your mind for that lower price point because you can get more of it? It sounds like a very basic principle, but it's sort of the way the human mind works. Well, I can buy 300 of these because they're only $10 each.
Yeah, it's very, very common, and it's actually counterintuitive completely, because the higher the sales price of the product, then the higher the cost price of the product. Then what they feel is, oh, I'm going to have to invest more, and that's not necessarily the case, because the higher the cost price of the item, the lower the quantity that you have to buy. Right, so it flips. If you've got a product that's costing you, say, $3 or $4, you're going to have to order 1,000 of them. If you've got a product that's costing you $30 or $40, you're going to have to buy 100 of them. The actual investment is the same. The only difference now as well, in a positive way, is you only have to shift 100 units, whereas the other geezer's got to shift 1,000 units. And then they will go to, yeah, but call it cheaper or less expensive items sell quicker. Well, try telling that to Sony, PlayStation 5 or Xbox whenever it was flying off the shelf. The two things are not connected. And also, competition at a lower price point, considerably higher than at a higher price point.
And outside of unit cost, what are the other key things that you're looking at?
In terms of the financials and sort of economics or numbers behind it, size does play its part, as does weight, but really size and weight only play the part of allowing you to almost like see the future, almost like the Oracle or Nostradamus. You're able to see the future because you've got a hell of a lot of the numbers there. If you know what size your product is and what weight it is, then you're able to work out how much it's going to cost you to bring into stock, and also how much it's going to cost you to get out of stock in terms of that Amazon fulfillment rate, or FBA as they call it. How much is it going to cost you to move it from their fulfillment center into the hands of your customer? Amazon runs that in their size tiers. So their size tiers, as in TIERS, not tears from your eyes. My accent going back to haunt me. But these size tiers are all based on the size of the product and then the weight of the product. And then they determine what that FBA cost, or getting it from a fulfillment center out to the hands of your customer, will cost. So you can see that all before you even put down a deposit on a sample. If you know what size it is, you know what weight it is, you can work out absolutely everything else. I
can imagine whenever you first go to start thinking about researching a product, it just gets really quite paralyzing in terms of the amount of things that you could go down the route of. Obviously, thousands and thousands of products. Is there anything that you see? Is there a key mistake that people continue to make every time they're looking at a product that they just get caught up in and they rule out whenever they maybe shouldn't?
Yeah, I think they rule. It's almost the opposite. They rule things in a wee bit too quickly because they're rushing. You know, it's that thing of they want to sit down for an hour or two, and the first thing that they find turns into a yes, let's call it. And, you know, we've always had that thing where we allow people to submit product ideas for approval, and it still exists to this very day. And people who've got a lot of experience in the likes of product research are doing these approvals. But to sit down for a couple of hours and find something that's going to pass through all of the different stages, even for a seasoned campaigner, is quite difficult, right? And spending a little bit more time on that, I think, is really, really important, and it's integral to people's businesses, but also to their emotional mindset. Because if you have that, I guess you would call it anticipation or expectation that you're going to find something in 2 hours, and then whenever you don't, then what happens to your mood? Right? And it starts to go down, 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 down. Whereas if you turn around and say, it's going to take you 60 days or 90 days to find something, and then you find it after 45, hey, you're up in time. And also you've got to realize that, well, how many of these items are you going to be investing in every single year? You know, most of the people, and the average that I sort of see is between 4 to 6. So if you need to invest in 4 products a year, well, 1 a quarter then, 1 every 90 days of you finding it and it going through and passing all the bits. That's actually perfect. That's you buying on target. Anything more than that is going to, yes, give you options, which is good. But if you're finding something every 2 hours, then you get back into that other thing you were talking about, which is the paralysis by analysis. Oh, I've got too many options here. What do I do? So that's not an answer to your question, but I thought I'd say that anyway. I think the answer to your question is people just looking a wee bit too much on what I would call the surface. So they're going down through, and their research isn't deep. I find that whenever you go a little bit deeper, you go a little bit off-piste, if you want to call it that, or a little bit different, not the day-to-day styles of items, that's where you start to find the gems that I would describe. So they're not sitting on top of the rock, Paul, they're sitting underneath the rock, and you got to do a bit of digging.
I suppose the other thing is that boring stuff sells, and sometimes people don't really want to think like that. They probably see something that is sort of very niche to them, and they recognise it, and they think it would be a great thing for them to have in their home or something like that, and they start getting a little bit caught up in the romantics of a product, that sort of attraction to it. Do you see that happening sometimes, that people want to sell something that they see as being cool? Yeah,
and they go down that route of they want to sell something that they would be happy telling their friends that they sell, right? So then the narrative changes. So what you're doing is you're creating your portfolio of products based on what the Joneses think about what you sell. That doesn't make any sense in a business. I've always said that it's almost that if you were out at the pub with your mates and they said to you, well, what are you selling, or what's your latest product, that you should almost feel really sheepish about it and almost half embarrassed. Not from an embarrassment point of view, but they should probably turn around to you and go, what's that? Do they sell online? That kind of expression that you get. It's almost like it's a really good sniff test, actually, because if one of your mates went, oh, that's cool, you've probably picked the wrong product. If they say to you, what are you doing? That's probably a good product.
Is there a key error that you see, something that somebody should never base an opinion on whether they should sell a product or not? Is there something that you would say, never base it on that? Like, for instance, going in and reading reviews, something like that.
It's exactly that. And it's not so much the reading of the reviews that can be useful to the finer details of the product. It's the number of reviews. And what it does is it's actually something that puts a lot of people off. So they'll see a product and they'll say, oh, that's got 2,000 reviews. I could never compete with that product. And they rule it out immediately. It's like, what are you doing? That reviews really only stand for two things. Number one, the quality of the product that you're looking at or the competitor's product, and how long it's been in stock. That's it. It doesn't stand for anything else. The number and the timeline of how long it's been could indicate its sales velocity, but what does that matter, right? I more go down through reviews to find little things that could be improved upon. So if you were selling some sort of a jacket, let's say, not that you would be selling a jacket or a coat online. Well, a lot of people do, but it's not a private label product. And the reviews were constantly talking about the need for an inside pocket. Well, that's perfect, because whenever you're getting your jacket made, you could put in an inside pocket. The customer has spoken, so to speak. And they've bought the product, they're happy with the product, but they're pointing out something that could be useful. Those little bits are gold. And if you're able to slightly change the manufacturing, we're not talking about completely re-engineering a jacket here or re-engineering a product. It's the little differences that you can make to the item to fulfill those customer desires or needs that they've already told you about. That's another bit of a gem.
It's funny when you can bring out a private label product, you could easily get it wrong. I'm just going to give you an example here. I'll not mention the manufacturer, but it's a pen manufacturer, and they brought out a For Her series
of
pens. And the review, I have to read this review because it actually just took me to the fair. So, a lady from Milwaukee posted this on the review for these pens. Someone has answered my gentle prayers and finally designed a pen that I can use all month long. I use it when I'm swimming, riding a horse, walking on the beach and doing yoga. It's comfortable, leak-proof, non-slip, and it makes me feel so much more feminine and pretty. Since I've begun using these pens, men have found me more attractive and approachable, and it has given me soft skin and manageable hair. It has really given me self-esteem. Given me the self-esteem I needed to start a book club and flirt with the bag boy at my local market. This is taking an unexpected twist, isn't it?
Yeah.
My drawings of kittens and ponies have improved, and now that I'm writing my last name hyphenated with Robert Pattinson's last name, I really believe he may someday marry me. I'm positively giddy. Those smart men in marketing have come up with a pen that my lady parts can really identify with.
My original sort of thing was, how is she writing while swimming? That's my real long-lasting part of that review. It's like swimming and writing. The need to do so seems odd. Pens and water generally don't go together, as well as, yes, the swim, you tend to need your arms and therefore your fingers. So it's an interesting review, that's for sure.
I'm going to hazard a guess that she's being heavily sarcastic.
Do you reckon? I reckon she may have posted it from Milwaukee, but she's probably from Northern Ireland with that level of sarcasm. That's a 9.7 out of 10 right there.
She actually finished it off with, "Where has this pen been all my life?" Which is perfect. But yeah,
$4.99 well spent.
It's funny, sometimes it is worth getting into the reviews just to get a laugh, but that's one of them. So say for instance you've ordered a product and it bombs. It's an absolute disaster. You've obviously got to store that product, you've got to take that hit. Is there anything you can grasp hold of as a bit of a lifesaver once that's happened and you've committed that financial reserve to that to pull you back out of that hole and get you going again?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. Certainly some things that could be done pre that, preparing, you know that expression, fail to prepare, prepare to fail, that sort of thing. It's a great quote, and it's one that everybody should take in. Everybody should have a plan on a product before it launches. Know what you're expecting, plan out the different expectations in terms of sessions and traffic and unit session percentage. And then if something starts to go a little bit awry or wrong, then you're taking action early. That's definitely the first two parts. Having a plan and then taking the action as early as you possibly can. As it's then moving through, again, in terms of your planning financially, allow yourself a bit of wriggle room, as I would call it, which again is another part of the $30 scenario, or £25-ish, €25, somewhere around there. Because when you're at that level, you've got pretty much everything in your arsenal that you can do to attack something like that. We can make an investment to improve the listing, right? So we can improve the titles, we can improve the photography, we can improve the bullet points, we can improve the copy. All right, so there's a lot of stuff that we can then improve if that is the problem. If conversion is the problem, right there we've been able to get it. If getting eyes or sessions on the product is a problem, now we've got a bit of wriggle room to be able to advertise, put that product out. If you've got that price point, the other thing in your arsenal is you're able to put a coupon on. You're able to put a voucher on. You're able to start testing price elasticity up and down, or down and up. You've just given yourself the option to do something with it. Whereas if you're at $10, you just don't have the room. You're dealing with about $2.50 in profit. How are you going to do anything in terms of price, coupons, vouchers? Are you going to reinvest more money in improving the actual copy of the listing? Are you going to want to put a lot more money at the advertising of it? It's no the whole way along there. Whereas whenever you're at a different price point, you've got a bit of wriggle room, then you're prepared to say, let's make a change, let's try and move something here, let's get the stock moving through so it doesn't become as much of a liability in terms of storage. And then traction starts to get built, and all of a sudden you could be on the way to winning product again.
Yeah, some good points in there actually. I think for people
Thanks.
You'd nearly think you'd done this before. From the other side of it, if you have a product and it's gone off the shelf, so to speak, so quickly, and it's a fantastic success story, is there anything you would caution against in regards to reordering and just being a little bit wary of?
Well, the biggest thing that I would caution against there is waiting too long. Right? You can only work with the data that you've been given, so try not to second guess yourself too much. Reevaluating over and over and over again is going to put you back into the paralysis by analysis, right? And you don't want to go down that route. So making sure that if you've got something that's gone off like a rocket pretty quickly is to react pretty quickly, but also keep up to date with your reports. You know what I'm like with those. I'm fairly vain whenever it comes to reports. But when you get a product that goes off very, very quickly, make sure to react. And that could mean reordering inside of 2 or 3 weeks. Like it literally could. If the data is saying that, then you got to make sure and do it. That's the biggest mistake that I see whenever a product goes quickly off the shelves, is people kind of then second guess it. Oh, will this continue? Well, your data tells you that even early days, it's working, items are moving, units are selling, and realistically speaking, the expectation would be that it would go up. So you need to react quickly.
Great. Well, I think some really good informative stuff in there. Like maybe we'll go a little bit further into the inventory side of things next time, and you can bring people a little bit more information on that. But for now, thank you.
Cheers, Paul.
Get involved, have your say, ask us a question, or leave us a voice message by heading on over to privatelabelpeople.com/podcast.
Thanks to Robert as ever. Some really good points in there for everyone to take hold of. As ever, please leave us any thoughts in the comments. See you next time.